Everyone, welcome to another Quality Advocates event. Really pleased to welcome Simon, who's going to be leading a discussion all around exploratory testing and also demoing TestBuddy. So really excited to find out more about the tool and also Simon's way of thinking. Got great attendance so far. We had over 100 people sign up, which is brilliant. So I'm sure a few more people are going to be coming in as we go along. Without further ado, Simon, if you're ready, it would be great for you to lead the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Billy. Well, first of all, it's a privilege to be here and to have this opportunity to share some thoughts with you about exploratory testing and to get to demo a product called TestBuddy, of which I'm a co-founder of. So yeah, I hope you are all well. I appreciate it's super challenging times right now, so I hope you're all safe and well. But let's take this opportunity to get stuck in with the topic and see what happens. So the way things are going to work, I'm going to share my thoughts on why we don't talk enough about exploratory testing. And when I finish my talk, please do ask some questions in the chat. I'll do my very best to answer them. After that, I will also do a demo of TestBuddy, so stick around if you're interested in that. And again, there'll be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions you may have. So let's get stuck in. So imagine that you have this really special gift, and the gift allows everyone in your team to contribute to the product that you're building. And this gift, it allows everyone to feel like their voice is heard. And this gift is awesome because it allows for special feedback loops of ideas and of risk awareness and mitigation. And the other cool thing about this gift is it enhances team collaboration, communication, and product delivery. And you all get to play a serious part in building better products for your customers. So this gift sounds cool. I want this gift. Hopefully, from what I've described, you also want this gift, and I'm wondering how I get it. Now imagine that you and your colleagues, you can actually get a hold of this gift, and it doesn't cost too much. Yet for some reason, the majority of your team choose to ignore this special gift, and it's there just for the taking. And it might be down to the fact that your team is focused on important things, but they're missing a huge opportunity to take this special gift that I call exploratory testing. It is fantastic. This is a thing that can genuinely bring a team together. It can allow you to build much better products and, deliver things that are awesome for customers. And I think with such a gift as exploratory testing, I wonder why we're not talking about it as much as we could do. And also why we're not taking practical steps to embrace this thing called exploratory testing. So that's what my talk is today. I'm going to share my thoughts on why we don't talk more about exploratory testing. And I'm going to offer up some things that you might consider if you believe exploratory testing can make a difference. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. Well, it's not so much a secret because I talk about it all the time, but exploratory testing is freaking awesome, and it absolutely can make a difference to how you develop products. I think the thing that helps is that you're going to have to influence people if you want to embrace an exploratory testing mindset and implement some exploratory testing techniques. And before you can do any of that, before you can influence others, you're going to have to believe it's possible. So these are my thoughts. These are my opinions. I don't think they're right or wrong. Just something that you might reflect on and start a conversation with. Please do take the ideas and do what you like with them. Turn them upside down, on the side, whatever. I'm just super grateful that I have the chance to share some things with you today. And if you'd like to connect, please connect with me over LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, Simon_Tomes, and also please send me an email, simon@testbuddy.co. So why is it that we don't talk more about exploratory testing? Well, let's be honest, I think it can be hard to describe something that can take years of practice and can often feel very tacit. You can't just say, this is it, and these are all my skills, and I'm just going to give you one sentence which summarizes this thing called exploratory testing. If we think of, say, one example, one exploratory testing technique, such as long-form note-taking. Now, this I believe this skill is a huge part to support your exploratory testing efforts. There's plenty more, but let's just use this one example. It has taken me years of practice to get good at writing long-form notes. I've got to a point in my career where I can confidently describe what it is I'm discovering, what it is I'm thinking during my testing sessions, and the choices I'm making whilst I'm exploring. But this wasn't a skill that I just had when I started testing or started my career in testing. I had to learn it through practice, and then to explain something that you've got good at is hard, particularly when there are many learning styles to support if you're sharing with others. I think it can be hard to articulate what it is we've tested. That takes time to learn that skill. And I think it's even harder to describe how we tested and why we tested the way we did. And even harder to critique our own testing efforts in an unbiased way. Now all of those three things I've just described are super important. So another reason, why we don't talk more about exploratory testing is sometimes it's referred to as ad hoc testing. That's just another name for ad hoc testing. Just try a few things out, see what you can break. And that it's seen as the opposite to scripted testing. Well, so we might not, bother talking about it because it's just checking stuff and whatever. Let's see if we can break the thing. Well, no. Exploratory testing provides that organized feel of scripted testing, along with that rapid feedback of ad hoc testing. And I think, identifying what to test next is where exploratory testing comes into its own by using structure and using fast feedback. But it is absolutely not a form of ad hoc testing, that's for sure. So why else don't we talk more about exploratory testing? Sometimes it's seen as a thing that's just about finding bugs. So if it's about finding bugs, why do we need to talk about it? Just go find the bugs. Well, yeah, I think, finding bugs is an important outcome of exploratory testing. Yeah, I think it's more useful if we frame exploratory testing as exploring risks. We want to learn more about risks, and risks are those things which threaten the value of your product. And it's in this process of exploring risks that it encourages everyone in a team to contribute. You might find problems or bugs, absolutely, and that's cool. But in your exploration of risks, you may also find yourself offering up product ideas or feature ideas or changes. You may in turn ask more questions, which allow you to explore risks in other ways. And you may also, which I actively encourage, share compliments with the people you're working with when you're exploring, like, oh, this is cool. Oh, check that out. I'm really impressed how you implemented that particular thing. And you're doing all of this whilst discovering bugs. So it's not just about finding bugs. Also with exploratory testing, you can pretty much test anything, right? You don't have to just explore a working application. You could explore like a mock-up, systems diagram, an API, some acceptance criteria on a story, someone's idea, your own idea. It could be a database, it could be a process, a whole load of assumptions, specifications, or a wireframe, and many more. Sometimes I hear people talk about exploratory testing as a tautology, and I can understand that, because the argument here is that all testing is exploratory. Now, I think that the word exploratory reminds us what we're tasked to do, and that's why I like referring to or using the term exploratory testing, is to go exploring, go discover and uncover useful information. Checking stuff, which falls under the activity of testing, I don't really think is about exploration. you might like to refer to it as non-exploratory testing. And it is possible to do non-exploratory testing with like simple checklists, or like a full-blown detailed test script with kind of expected results and stuff. And you know, you follow those lists. Typically, you don't tend to explore outside of those constraints. So I like to call out exploratory testing as an act of exploring with intent. And I think maybe the brand of exploratory testing might be a little unclear. Saying exploratory testing is a tautology does it more harm than good. So why else might we not talk about exploratory testing, or why don't we talk about exploratory testing? I think it's sometimes seen as not very sexy. let's put it bluntly, and I'll come on to my meaning of sexy in a little bit. You know, exploratory testing appears to be old and dated, and it doesn't really lend itself to new technologies or the latest trends. You know, automation this, DevOps that, cloud, observability, voice, shift left, and the like. Well, exploratory testing as part of a wider testing strategy can work with all the latest trends and everything that's come before. You know, exploratory testing, you could say, is the new sexy, as it always has been. Now I really want to qualify my use of the sexy here. I would say if you know, if you care deeply about your team and you care deeply about the product that you're building, then use exploratory testing. You know, this is a very powerful tool for communication, collaboration, and empathy. And what's not sexy about communication, collaboration, and empathy? It's very attractive right now. And I think in this complex world with increasingly complex systems to test, more than ever, we need effective communication, collaboration, and empathy. So why else don't we talk more about exploratory testing? Sometimes we don't know our audience and who we're trying to help, influence, or inspire. It could be developers, product folks, managers, project people, designers, business stakeholders, and customers. And it's important to know who we're talking with, because if we don't, then our message might not land. Like today, I'll be honest with you, I've made a ton of assumptions about who might be listening today, and I might have got it completely wrong. And you know, perhaps in hindsight, I could have asked more questions about my audience before preparing this talk. Yet, you know what, I decided to take a punt anyhow, and to learn if this talk would resonate in some way. And if only one person gets one thing from this talk, then I'm satisfied. I think related to our audience and sharing with others, and when it comes to exploratory testing, sometimes we just jump in with the detail of exploratory testing and what it is. You know, I'm very guilty of doing this. You know, we tell people this is this instead of actually showing to them or demonstrating the value. And we miss that opportunity to start with why exploratory testing is important, and we just dive straight in. So why else don't we talk more about exploratory testing? So this one's a big topic, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. But there is this topic out there, and it's called automation. You may have heard of it. I mean, this is a vast and contentious topic, right? And some people out there believe that automation is the way forward for all testing strategies. And I believe a good testing strategy includes automated tests in some form. They could be also referred to as checks, some form of human checking activities, and human exploratory testing. And this human stuff may or may not use automation to support those efforts. And let's face it, if there is such a focus on automation and the skills and the tools that come with it, or are required, I should say, there's no doubt why we focus on talking about automation and perhaps less so on exploratory testing. I think also, sadly, automation is often sold as a cheaper and more effective way to do testing. Yet, automation is often misunderstood, and I think that's probably a topic for another time. But still on the subject of automation, and this I believe is another reason why we don't talk more about exploratory testing, is, let's face it, you tend to get paid more to be an automator. And I see that exploratory testing is often labeled with something called manual testing. And manual testing jobs tend to pay less than automation jobs. So if the jobs market pays you more for automated skills, then we'll likely talk more and place more effort on those things than we would about exploratory testing skills and mindset. Even though I think, if we're honest, if we hold the mirror up and say to ourselves, like, what is manual testing? It's a bit of a misnomer. I find it peculiar that manual testing is a term, like a manual tester, just in the same sense that I don't think, or I've never seen or heard of someone refer to themselves as, hey, I'm a manual developer, or I'm a manual designer, or I'm a manual product owner. And I think what may happen is some companies just aren't sure what they're looking for, and that's fine. That's I think in a lot of hires. And exploratory testing skills and those sorts of roles could be pretty niche in the big scale of everything that you could do in the world of product development or software engineering. So for those companies that are unsure, I encourage you to speculatively engage with them and find out, what testing problems they have that need solving. And I could pretty much bet, I'll place a heavy bet that automation isn't likely to be the entire solution to those testing problems. Yeah, I think until there's quite a shift in how the recruitment model is set up, I think this trend will continue, that there will be misunderstandings about the value that exploratory testing offers. But I'd like to think that there is a counter wave to, let's just focus on automation. There's a wave of people talking more about exploratory testing and its value. And I do occasionally see some job specs which are absolutely looking for an exploratory tester, and that's very promising. There are some good companies out there that know exactly what they're looking for. So I think we all have a part to play in educating those with less experience and knowledge of exploratory testing, and expose the value that comes with it. So I believe this is about educating recruiters, leaders, managers, and hiring managers, who aren't that familiar with testing, and in particular, exploratory testing. I think it's important that we also understand the context and history of the people that we're working with. They might have had a difficult experience in the past where they appear to be held up by a testing role, so a QA tester, test engineer, QA engineer, etc. And it may be that person has said, yeah, I'm doing some exploratory testing, but perhaps they weren't in a good position to do so, and they were just running step-based checks. And you can imagine, if a developer has worked with that individual, they might be like, well, can't we just automate that stuff? Like, can't we that stuff that you're just doing, we could just automate those checks. So I can understand when there's no surprise that there's a shift towards wanting to automate checks if a developer or those on the team haven't ever experienced the value of exploratory testing. And I think to this point, it's important to understand that before trying to influence others. And I encourage people to show and not tell. Run a good exploratory testing session with really good notes and an engaging test report, and you're one step closer, and demonstrate the value of your exploratory testings. Get to the point. Your exploratory testing session is like getting to that point where your developers are asking for an exploratory testing report that kind of gives them the lowdown of everything you discovered and how you explored, and perhaps the quality of your testing as well. And I'll be honest, we've had this with our product TestBuddy. Some of our customers say it wasn't really the notes that made the difference. It was kind of the accessible report that engaged the developers, and they were like, oh wow, this is useful. I can actually see what you're testing. You're demonstrating in a good enough detail what it is you're exploring and why, and the things you discovered. Okay, thanks for sticking with me on this, by the way. So let's keep going. So why don't we talk more about exploratory testing? I think we're busy. We're all busy, right? And we've got lots of stuff to do, and it might just be seen as something that's not as important as all the other stuff. We have day-to-day stuff to focus on. We've got this initiative for management. We've got this agile ceremony getting in the way. Well, there's a new idea from the last retrospective that we're trying to implement, or we're firefighting a production issue. We can all be busy. Yeah, and the opportunity to talk and experiment with exploratory testing can often be too far down that list, and that's fair enough. Yeah, I wish that wasn't a reality, because exploratory testing helps us explore risks. This is the stuff that might threaten the value of the products we're building, and if we frame it like that, then I would hope that it raises a flag to bump up the priority of experimenting with exploratory testing. And the cool thing with some exploratory testing techniques is you can just run a short solo or group exploratory session in 30 minutes. There might be a bit of prep beforehand, but you can set yourself a 30-minute timer and explore for 30 minutes with some focused ambition of what you want to achieve for that session. And within 30 minutes, you could reveal lots of useful information and demonstrate value within that short time frame. And I think because exploratory testing might not be seen as important, it could stop testing folks, particularly testing folks who are leading the initiative to introduce exploratory testing, for example. They just might not want to talk about it because there's other things going on. And I think related to that, and again, maybe another reason why we don't talk more about exploratory testing is there seems to be a lack of accessible information out there about what it is and how it helps. I did a search the other day for exploratory testing on an incognito Chrome session, and I noticed that all the sites that rank well, they have information about exploratory testing. They're typically made up of sites where you have to buy yourself onto that site, and it may be like from a big testing services company and similar. And I've noticed that the content that's shared is useful to some extent, but it's sometimes misleading. So the stories from actual testers with real experience of exploratory testing and practical examples to share, they don't tend to easily surface, or if you're searching for this information out there. There doesn't appear to be enough resources where exploratory testers are telling their stories, inspiring people with real life examples. There are some good stuff out there, but you've got to dig for it. And I will share a list of some good places to go and read up on and explore a little bit later. I also see there's quite a lot of theory discussed, and that's cool. But I think some learning styles would prefer some practical real life examples and exercises to get stuck into and experiment with. So I really encourage you to share your exploratory testing stories. If you're on the start of your journey into the world of exploratory testing, please share some great stuff about what you're learning, whether it's like blog posts or videos or contributing to forums or chats or meetups like this. And if you're long into your journey, please do share, inspire others, tell them what you've learned, share what you've learned, make things as practical as you can be. I certainly noticed that the more I learn, the more I share, and on the flip side, the more I share, the more I learn from others. It's fantastic. So a little bit longer to go with this. So why else don't we talk more about exploratory testing? Well, I think that those who lead exploratory testing efforts typically have a minority voice within a group of people who develop software. Exploratory testing isn't mainstream because, let's face it, developers don't tend to talk much about it. because they've got other test related stuff to focus on, and that's cool. They're designing their systems with using tests, then that's awesome, right? And we want to actively encourage that. And I think, again, if you are the minority voice, it's a great opportunity to demonstrate value. Find a developer or someone on your team that is up for reading your test reports, is up for reading say your long form notes or your mind map notes that you put together, and pair up with them. You could pair up and take notes together. Find a developer who will advocate for exploratory testing as part of your whole testing strategy. Find that other person who can be your buddy, and it starts there. It absolutely starts there. So another reason that we don't talk more about exploratory testing is we might get it wrong, or we might feel that we get it wrong when we talk about it. So there are strong voices out there that that perhaps stop us from sharing things because we might look stupid or feel ostracized. And sometimes, let's face it, we don't have the mental energy or are in a good enough mental well-being shape to engage in all that. And I'll be honest with you, I've been there and often remain there. I'm like, I'm not willing to put something out there to have to end up in a debate that's like, this isn't so productive. So today, yeah, it has filled me with a lot of anxiety to share my views on a topic that I'm so passionate about. But I just thought, let's just do it right. And I think we all have something to contribute, and we can all evolve the exploratory testing mindset and approach with our own experiences and inspire others to see what's possible. So again, I encourage you to share your experiences, inspire others, shape the current and future growth of our testing craft. Exploratory testing is and always should be a huge part of our craft. And I feel, we shouldn't shy away from how valuable it is. And it's something we should feel proud about and talk about with confidence. So I encourage you to get it wrong. Some stuff I've shared today, I'm sure I've got wrong, whatever that means. I kind of see it as an experiment. Put something out there, see what resonates, and learn and try again and repeat. Which I feel is connected to that exploratory testing mindset of experimentation. Experiment with how you talk about exploratory testing and how you demonstrate the value of exploratory testing, and just find out what resonates, with your different audiences and see what's possible. I think we owe it to the people we work with to talk more about exploratory testing. Talk about that value of collaboration and communication and how it amplifies empathy. And if we understand the audience's context, we don't need to shy away from talking about it. And if that means having to train and coach others, absolutely take the opportunity to do so. So I think, Billy, we jumped to questions at this point, but I guess my parting question for you all is, what's one simple thing that you could do today or by the end of this week to talk more about exploratory testing? No need to share now on the chat, but if you wish to, please do go ahead. But yeah, let's jump to the group chat, and if you have any questions, please just post away and I'll do my very best to answer. Billy, at this point, would you like to jump in and moderate those questions and ask them, or would you like me to just look through the questions and pick them out?
I'm happy to ask them. I know there's a couple that it's been great to see quite a little discussion going on through the chat, which is brilliant to see. We've got one from Steph, and I think you're going to cover this after, but are there any exploratory testing resources that you're able to share?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's tons of really good stuff out there. It's just kind of digging into finding them. So what I'll do is I put together a little resource pack that I will share on the meetup page, and it will also form part of the video description when this is available, I believe, on YouTube. So yeah, more than happy to share some resources, and please do please do reach out to me on either Twitter or directly on LinkedIn or through the email I mentioned earlier. If you have any questions and you want to chat more on a one-to-one, I'd love to talk more.
Good stuff. We've got one from Gokul here. As a person who manages delivery, how can we track and measure the time spent on exploratory testing by the team? Example, like any process to bring visibility to a cross-functional team.
Cool, that's a great question. And I guess if I've understood correctly, tracking and measuring, I guess would help us say, we spent for this particular sprint, maybe 20% of our effort on exploratory testing activities. And yeah, I think while metrics and tracking things again is a hot topic and can cause some contention, I feel there's no harm in capturing how long you're spending on exploratory testing activities. I once on a previous place, or at a previous place I worked at, I was just tracking everything I was doing each day. So what meetings I was in, what other activities I was preparing for, what exploratory testing sessions I was running. And it was just, I brought it to a retrospective, and it just started a good conversation. It's like, oh wow, we're spending our time here. I really didn't think it was that long. And what value did we get from that particular thing? So I think if you are tracking things, then I encourage you to give it a go and bring that to perhaps an Agile ceremony where it's cool to talk about these things and find out if they're valuable. I think if you have a reason to track stuff, it's a very good starting point.
Brilliant. We've got one from Amrith. They've asked, where do we get the list of risks? Do we create our own and/or ask team members?
Oh, now that is a great question. So you have both those options. I know when I run an exploratory testing session, before I start a particular session, I will capture some risks, and I would think of them in terms of the thing that would threaten the value of that particular thing that I'm about to explore. And I could do that by myself. I think it works better when you work with others to capture risks, and you could run this as a ceremony, as like a one-off session if you're preparing, say, you're testing charters. So group together, time box, like, hey, this is the thing we're implementing. What risks might threaten that particular thing, and everyone solo write down their ideas and say start a 3-minute timer. Once the 3 minutes is up, bring all those topics into conversation, and then spark other ideas by everyone sharing their thoughts about risks. Then what I find is useful once you capture some risks is then to capture some questions, like what questions should we ask to investigate those risks? And then you have, like, again, try and do that as a group and solo write some good questions that would help you explore those risks, bring them all back together, pick and choose what you think would be valuable. And then once you have a set of risks and a set of questions, typically at that point you can put together a charter. So a charter being, this is my testing mission, what I would like to explore, with certain things to discover useful information for the next 30 minutes. And you could put together a load of charters off the back of your risks and questions. There is, if it's of interest, I will share as part of the resource pack, it's like an 8-minute video on this risks and questions technique that I've just described. Hopefully that helps.
Great, thank you. And Brian asked, and I think you may have already covered this as well, but do you think the experience role should be a specialist? So a role on par with the likes of automation engineer?
You know what, I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I've seen in teams where there can be someone who naturally is very good at exploratory testing and encouraging them and working with them and training them and coaching them to become a better exploratory tester, and they then demonstrate their value to the rest of the team and contribute in their way that's different from others in the team. I've also seen it where there isn't like a specialist role, where there's certain people in the team and it's not just one individual, who are using exploratory testing techniques to explore risks. I think it's worth experimenting with all approaches because every team's context is different, right? The context is made up of so many different things to do with the company culture, company objectives, the skill set of the team, the goals they have, the tools they're using, the tech stack, design methodologies. There's so many different things. So I would encourage experimenting and just being clear on what you want to experiment with. Like if we invested time in having a dedicated exploratory tester, what do we want to get out of that? Or hey, if we try to take someone as a testing coach to train others, to train engineers, business people, and product people to learn exploratory testing, you know, have a clear objective as to what you're experimenting with before you try it.
Great. And final question from Heuristics. And if anyone does have any further questions, are you happy for them to reach out to you on LinkedIn or Twitter, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Please do. And also simon@testbuddy.co. That's my direct email address.
Good stuff. So final question is, do you think we should declare exploratory testing within the test strategy?
Yes, 100%. I think it's very important to make it explicit that exploratory testing, excuse me, is part of your overall testing strategy. I'm just going to grab a water, one moment. Thanks. So there's Dan Ashby has a fantastic testing strategy model that he's described. So I'll make sure I include that in the resources pack that I'd mentioned I'll share. But I think it's important to include exploratory testing as part of your strategy with other test approaches like automated checking or automated testing and I would say human-based checking, but to make it really explicit and why you might use those different approaches in different contexts, given what sort of information you'd like to discover. But yeah, I really encourage make exploratory testing explicit, call it out for what it is, and give people a reason to listen to it and understand the value that it can bring.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Simon, for answering everyone's questions. I'm sure you'll have a few more coming your way after this. Yeah, if you don't mind, if you could demo us TestBuddy as well, that'd be great. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm just going to move a few things around on my desktop, just so I have some notes. Just going to grab one more glass of water. My throat is starting to get a bit croaky. One moment. So you should now see a Google Chrome browser window, and in it you should see two tabs, and I can get started with the demo. So a little bit of background of TestBuddy. So this is something I've probably wanted to build my whole career as a tester. It's been bubbling away as something that would help me capture my testing notes, that would help me document them in a way that would allow me to have some good conversations with the people I'm working with. So it's taken lots of my years experience and some good effort to build it, but it's so exciting that it's out there now and that we have people using it and we have customers. We're absolutely privileged to serve those customers and for people to get value from using our product. I would say it's pretty niche. It's for those who like capturing long form notes. It allows you to pretty much document what it is you're thinking, what it is you're discovering, and why you're testing, and then to present it in a way that allows you to have really good conversations about those discoveries. Now, what you're seeing here is the output of a TestBuddy session, and it's a very straightforward PDF report. So I'll come back to the detail in a bit, but I'm just going to skim through it so you can get an idea and a feel for what a test report looks like in TestBuddy's world. So if you notice some screenshots and some actual notes that that this person's captured, and that person was me. This is a session I ran not so long ago. We have some iconography to kind of call out things that might be an idea or a question. Also, when we see something that's cool, you can add a little smiley face or some praise, as we call it within TestBuddy. And if you find a bug or a problem, you can mark your notes accordingly. And this report is just one click away. Whatever notes you've captured are available and automatically formatted on a report. And where our customers tend to get the most value from using TestBuddy is through attaching these test reports to maybe a Jira that they've been exploring, or they stick it in Slack and it starts a conversation, or it starts a debrief session with whoever needs to be debriefed with. And this report, it comes directly from an actual TestBuddy session. So here's your TestBuddy dashboard. This is where you can have a look at every test session that you've ever ran, and you can review them whenever you want. And in this case, this is someone who's recently signed up. They have themselves a nice tutorial, which if you do sign up to TestBuddy, I encourage you to have a look. It will help you get started. And there's also an example session, which, if we have a look at it, is essentially the same thing that we just saw on that PDF, but in session form. So what we have at the top here is what TestBuddy refers to as the charter. This is the kind of test goal or mission that you set yourself before you start exploring. And in this case, this exploration session was wanting to explore this thing called Lean Coffee Table, cross-browser, to learn about the sharing a board feature. Notice there's a timer. So TestBuddy actively encourages people to make the most of time boxing, to really go, hey, you know what, I'm just going to do this for 30 minutes and I'm going to stop, tidy my notes up and share. You know, I can always run another session. So there you have a timer option. And once you've completed your report, it provides you with a summary of the different types of discoveries that you've labeled. So in this case, there's a couple of problems, 2 questions have been asked, 6 ideas shared, and 3 compliments given. Plus you can add any kind of summary notes or a summary description of your whole testing session. You also notice there's this planning section. So I mentioned this earlier on, that before I explore, and again, this is optional within TestBuddy, you don't need to plan anything. You can just start exploring and capturing your notes. But if you like a bit of planning before you start, then you can use this planning section. And some of the things you might capture are things like your oracles, or you share your context. So oracles may be things that help you make an assessment or a judgment of a thing that you're exploring. You may capture your risks. And these may be things that you believe would threaten the value of the thing that you're exploring. And you may, as I mentioned before, capture some questions that you feel during your exploratory testing session that you want to try and answer as you go. Other stuff you might capture in planning are like your heuristics, which I guess help you trigger testing ideas as you explore. And you might also want to capture some setup stuff as well. In this case, I think I just captured some the version of my browser or the other version of the browser I was using, Firefox, just a few things I needed to prepare before exploring. And then as you explore, you'll see that you can add screenshots. You can add any comments to those screenshots. There is a timestamp automatically added every time you add a note. And essentially this session is just unfolding. As I was exploring, I was typing out what I was thinking, what I was discovering, labeling those notes in a way that I felt was meaningful, and just continued. At this point, I paused the session. So you have an option if you need to take a little break or you've been interrupted during your session, then you can hit pause on a little timer, which I'll show you how to do in a little bit. And it just makes a little timestamp to note that the session was paused for that amount. And I kept exploring. So you notice that TestBuddy supports GIFs. So if you have a GIF that you want to add, you can just drag and drop it onto the session, or click a button to add it. And a bit of an exclusive, we have video support coming very soon. So you'll be able to add the majority of well-supported video types like MOVs, MP4s, etc. So if you have a video that you captured of a particular thing that you found, you can add that to your TestBuddy session. And I encourage the use of video. I feel it's a powerful way to demonstrate a particular problem that you found and then actually provide a voiceover to the thing that you discovered. A video can be perhaps far more effective than a few written words. And then at the end of the session, I finished exploring, and then I was offered the chance to go back and share some extra summary content. So all these numbers here are automatically put together, and that was it. And essentially, once you have your testing session is complete, you can download it as a PDF. It's just one click. Off it downloads, and then it automatically formats everything about that exploratory testing session into a handy report, which I mentioned earlier. You can stick on like a Jira or a Asana ticket, or on Slack, or wherever you use, wherever you need to document and share these test reports. So let's have a look actually how you get started. So to do so, I'm just going to grab some text from elsewhere just to speed things up a bit. So imagine that you're exploring that Lean Coffee sign-up flow, and you want to discover things that might stop someone from signing up. So that's your charter name. You hit add, and it's ready to go. So this is your charter. It's all set. It's there, ready for you to start capturing. As I mentioned before, you can dive straight in and start exploring and add your first note. It will automatically default to a 60-minute timer, which you can see here. And the timer is just easily editable. If you say, do you know what? I just need 35 minutes to explore that. I'm going to capture some risks and, etc. And just to get started, you just start exploring like that. So let's go. I'm not actually going to run a test session now because I've certainly been talking for a long enough time. But this is how you would explore. It'd be like, I noticed this thing about that thing. You then may label that accordingly. So you get this little option here to select whether you feel that's a problem, a question, an idea, or some praise that you want to share. So let's just say that's a problem. And again, you can continue to add notes as you explore. So let's check this bit out. And again, you can grab some images, just drag and drop them on there. And then you can add a nice caption like, I found this cat, and just label it accordingly. And you can go for as long as you want. And TestBuddy encourages you to stop when the timer runs out, but you don't have to stop. You can continue going. It will give you a printout of how long you explored for extra beyond the time that you planned for. And once you're done, you can just finish exploring. It's as simple as that. It gives you a timestamp. It then encourages you to download your PDF. And just as a side note, whilst this sidebar is open, we encourage the use of keyboard shortcuts. We also have some basic markdown formatting options as well with your notes. And at this point, it's like, I finished my testing. I'm going to add a summary. This app is great, for example. And there you go. I can then download my PDF report, automatically formatted with a summary and all of my notes. And it's all ready to go to stick on Jira or add to Slack. And at this stage, I can go back to my dashboard and see that my session has finished exploring. It gives me a little timestamp of when it was last updated. And then once I'm done with my session, I no longer need to have a conversation about it. For example, I can go back into it and I can archive it. And then if I go back to my dashboard, that session is archived. So that's kind of useful if you want to use a previous charter to trigger ideas for another charter that you might be working on. So you can always go back to stuff that you've archived, but if it's not important right now, you can keep it out of your view on your dashboard. So that is TestBuddy. Yeah, please do give it a try. You kind of give it a go. Let us know what thoughts and ideas you have and what it triggers for you, and how it's useful and how it doesn't help. And if you have any questions or thoughts about it, just capture me on the live chat here on the bottom right, or send me a direct message, simon@testbuddy.co, and there is TestBuddy. So if you have any questions now, please do ask them in the chat, and Billy, I'll hand over to you to moderate those questions if that works for you.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for showing that demo. That's really good, really interesting, and hopefully a few people will be using it following this. Just one question for now from Rayhan, and he said, how can TestBuddy support testing in an agile environment?
Well, I'll make some assumptions about agile environment. So let me assume that means where you're attempting to test as fast as stuff is being delivered, or you're looking to test as you go, and there's not like a development phase and a testing phase. So if I make the assumption that that's what you mean, I would encourage the use of TestBuddy where there's someone has said, hey, there's this thing we need to explore. It's now ready, and you could just put together a charter and run that session within 30 minutes. Or there's like, oh, there's some stories we need to review. Okay, well, let's crack open a TestBuddy session and capture, this is what we want to explore, and then document or write down everything that you're discovering as you explore it. So in an agile context where things are rapid and things are happening quickly, I believe TestBuddy encourages fast feedback. It encourages doing short, dedicated, focused testing sessions, particularly making use of that timer, and the quick and easy way to share your testing report. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's great. Well, I'm sure you'll get a couple more people reaching out to you after that. Or we've actually just got another question that's just popped up by Vernon. So he said, hi Simon, as you know, I'm a fan. What happens if we have to close the browser, clear cache, etc. mid-session? Brackets, I'm thinking about situations where there are bugs, crashes, etc. Would we lose our notes up until that point?
Oh, now that is a very good question. And thank you, Vernon. I'm also a big fan of you. So yeah, if you have to close your browser, so TestBuddy is saving in real time. As you may have noticed, there's no like save button as such. So it's pretty much saved instantaneously. Kind of think of it like you know, your Google Docs suite. It's just saving in real time. Perhaps you triggered an idea that maybe we need a visual indicator to say when things are saving or when it's all saved and up to date, kind of like what the Google Suite does. But if stuff breaks instantly and browsers crash, I would say all of your data will still be readily available within a few split seconds. But thanks for your question.
And Brian's just asked, what about non-web-based applications?
Thanks, Brian. So if you are using TestBuddy in a web browser, then and you're testing something else that isn't web-based, then essentially you can use TestBuddy to capture what it is you're exploring that's non-web-based. If you don't have access to a web browser, then you won't be able to use TestBuddy. There is no downloadable app that exists or a client that exists for, say, the Mac OS or for Windows or I don't know, any tablet. So you do have to have a browser available to launch TestBuddy to then start documenting your notes. And we encourage Chrome, Safari, and Firefox as well.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's it for now. Just want to say another huge thank you, Simon, for leading today's webinar and showing us all about TestBuddy and talking us through exploratory testing. I think a lot of people learned a lot and it was a great discussion. So thanks everyone for coming along, and thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much, Billy. It's been an absolute privilege to be here, and thank you everyone who's participated and actively listened. I'm just super grateful for your time, but please do reach out to me. Let's keep the conversation going. And Billy, what you're running here is fantastic. It's great that you're engaging in the community. It's just incredible that you're able to run this on a regular basis, bring the community together so we can all learn. So thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks very much. All the best.
Take care, everyone. Bye.